I guess to kick this pod off, just, physical therapy, right? Like, I think that is a term that I feel like you only really hear about when you're older, or if you're, really active in sports, or like you have an injury and it's like you need to go to physical therapy. Uh, Talk to me about
Mhm.
like what physical therapy actually is. Just because if you just took the word separately, physical and therapy, is it just like I'm working out, I'm giving, my body, like am I relaxing my body? Like break it down so that people really understand what physical therapy actually is and what your role is as a physical therapist.
Yeah, I think one of the big misconceptions about physical therapy is like it's people kind of kid around and say the acronym is like personal torture, it's like PT.
Okay.
But physical therapy, what we are, we're the experts in the musculoskeletal system. So there are medical doctors that are the jack of all trades. They know a lot about many different systems. We don't focus on that. We focus mainly on the muscles, ligaments, joints, and nerves of the body. So anything in relation to nervous system dysfunction, or whether you have an injury or a tear to a ligament, we are the people that will help you to rehabilitate from those injuries, get back to the activities that you love as fast as possible. And so I'm really big on education because I find that when people come in and they have an injury, I find that's being very reactive. And I'm actually taking a more proactive approach to physical therapy, saying, even if you don't have pain, even if you have a minor amount of stiffness or something that's just ailing you, that's not really like a freak injury, I find that it's better to prevent rather than to cure. So if people can just take a more proactive approach to their health and perceive more physical therapy as that, I think the world and healthcare would be a better place for sure.
Got it. So I guess when you're talking about, being proactive about it, like how would you even know that you have an issue, right? Or potentially would have an issue. Let's say, like you were saying, like, hey, especially I think for people of our generation, where it's like you're in your 20s or 30s, or even heck, if you're just playing sports as a teen, right? Like, uh, I would say for the most part, we are fairly limber, right? Or like we're not aching, we don't have a ton of aches and pains like all the time in
Hmm.
daily life. So how would someone who isn't actually experiencing any pain, be able to identify areas for, being proactive in making sure that they aren't injured?
That's a good question. And so when you're talking about injury prevention, you're talking about being on certain programs or routines that you find would be a benefit to you within strength and mobility realm. So, for example, I think like here's a good analogy. We take vitamins and we take certain minerals, we eat well, right? And it's for the purpose of living longer. You might not have any gut issues, you might not have ulcerative colitis or anything like that, but you know that if you just eat, fatty foods all day, it's likely your arteries might get clogged and you might
Right.
experience heart disease later on in life. So you got to experience it as such. Now, some people they can't really understand, oh, I have a limitation in my shoulder range of motion or a limitation here, or I don't know if I'm weak in this area. Well, that's where there are injury prevention programs. Like they start them off pretty young, from like, age 5 all the way to age 15. There's injury prevention programs where when they enroll in that, they see how one person would see how they jump. It could be a physical therapist, it could be a personal trainer, but they see how they move in space and they can tell like, hey, these are some things that your kid might need to work on. And even for us age, although we may not have aches and pains, although some of us at our age
Right.
do,
Right.
it's really a matter of, do you want to wait until something breaks down, or do you want to do something now while you're young and your body is more limber and is able to adapt to certain strength and mobility programs? Do things now and work hard now so that you don't have to regret it later. And that's the way I perceive as like proactivity, injury prevention. And that's kind of the direction that I'm pushing for with my business.
Got it. Funny thing is, like, and I'll use analogies as well. Like, I'm really into like stock investing and finance and stuff like that. I'm not obviously here to give any sort of financial advice, but uh, there's this kind of thought about when you put your money in earlier, right? That, if the longer that you put in, the work, right? Or the capital,
Yep.
that those gains compound over time. So it sounds like
Yep.
it's very much in that case where it's just like, hey, like, you might not see a ton of value now, but if you put the work in, you put the routine in, you grow your body, you strengthen your body, or you strengthen parts of your body, or muscles that you haven't really explored or used, then that's going to basically have a compounding effect over time. The more that basically, I don't know if, I don't know if dollar cost averaging is like the right term for it, but just like being on a routine, right, where you're doing it on a
Yeah,
consistent basis, and those gains just grow over time.
I mean, that's a pretty consistent analogy. I mean, obviously, we're talking about money versus the body, and I
Right.
think that the body is pretty resilient to stress. And I think with the right mechanical programs and strength, and somebody that can actually build it out for you, like an organized routine, somebody that can teach you how to build out everyday movement and stretches and exercise into your daily life, you're going to notice that, like, hey, I mean, you fall when you're 70 years of age, and you're strong. You
Yeah.
might be able to survive that fall and just come out with a bruise versus a person that did not work out through their life and they experience a hip fracture, right? So it's
Right.
just the difference between something debilitating versus, hey, I mean, when that happens, and it will happen to a lot of us in life, it's all the work that you put in, like when you were younger.